Social media now, there's so many different social media coaches out there that like, I'll help you go viral. It's like, it doesn't matter if you go viral if 1% of that audience is the audience that you actually want to attract for your business. It's pretty much useless. In fact, it can actually damage your social media growth.
Sometimes the worst thing that could happen to you is you go viral too early. So a lot of times you go viral, like you said, you attract the wrong audience, and then now all of a sudden, you kind of screwed yourself over. Danny Mabley, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's happening, man?
What's going on? So we just wrapped up STR Wealth Conference, which Danny was covering a few of his clients. I was covering one of my clients. And Danny is just one of the greatest content guys in the game, especially in the real estate space here. So wanted to talk content with him, wanted to talk, especially for those people who, a lot of the business owners that I talk to are like kind of professional services. Maybe they're a bit more, a bit more reserved. They're not like the most creative or loud personality type of people. And so they kind of think content, I got to put on this personality. I got to turn into this character. What do you think? What do you see as the biggest mistake that this type of person tends to make when it comes to their content creation?
I mean, like you kind of, said, just getting started is the biggest first step, right? You always want to be creating rather than not, even if it's not great at the start. There's just so many ways you can kind of go with it. And as you start to create, you'll find your voice, you'll find your rhythm, you'll find what kind of you want to cover and everything. But honestly, especially if you're in the means of hiring someone to help you do it, I think there is a big misconception now with how it used to be. Because when I started in content creation back in 2014, 2015, you hired a videographer and you were the kind of content creator. I think with professionals, hiring a videographer, obviously they need to know how to use a camera, but it's almost you're hiring a storyteller, right? And we talk about this all the time. If you can't tell a story, you can't really create content that's going to actually hit and have the purpose that you want it to. So I almost say if you're looking for that guidance and that help, look for someone that's going to be able to help you find your voice. It used to be that as a videographer, we would help tell a story. It's almost now it's we as, content creators / social media people, it's we're helping our clients find their voice and tell their story through their content. I feel that shift has happened with a kind of long to short form shift that's happened in the last 10 years or so.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
No, I 100% agree with that. And the framework I always tell people is the story is the first story at least is probably not your personal story. If you're a mortgage loan officer, you're from Indiana and you got a wife and 2 kids. That's not the most riveting personal
relatable
story, right? It's very relatable, but it's not the most riveting thing. It's not the thing that's going to catch attention on social. But you just think about what is the problem that you're here to solve for the clients that you're theoretically trying to attract here on social, right? Yeah. And so the story you tell is then around that problem that they're facing and around the solution that they're looking for, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to attract your ideal client.
Absolutely. And we could get into the basics of making content, but I'm sure people have seen a ton of stuff. It just comes down to, I think if you're going to be great at anything, be the greatest at your first 5 seconds of your video, right? The chance that people are going to watch the rest all really come down to that first 5 seconds. Either is this for me? Who is this for? Are they talking directly to me? Is this for a broad audience? Am I even going to get any value out of this? People make that decision like that.
So quickly.
You know what I mean? It's hard to think about until you actually think about next time you're on TikTok or Instagram, you're scrolling through stuff. What are the stuff that you stop at? What's the stuff that catches your attention? How can you apply that to your own content and your own kind of niche, whatever it is that you're trying to kind of attract clients for? It's tough to think about without kind of doing a little bit of the research. So just go and see what kind of content attracts you and be oh, I could do that. Oh, I think I could apply that in some way. I think that's a great place to start, and just really owning that first 5 seconds, and then just give the value that you want it to attract your ideal client. I think that's definitely step 2 as far as the biggest thing to work on is who is your client can take months to learn. So like you said, at the start, your story might seem oh, well, I want to connect with people like me, so I'll just tell my story. But if you're not giving the value, you're just another person kind of sharing stuff about them. we all have to talk about ourselves, but someone else might not like hearing you talk about yourself all the time until they've like gotten to know you to the point where it's, oh, I want to know more about this person. I want to be invested with this person because their other stuff has given me value. And now I want to try and see if I can give value back to them by getting to know them better.
Well, and I feel like and maybe you too, I feel like I'm like the perfect example of this, of like my personal story isn't like the immediate way that I would resonate with my ideal client. Because if my ideal client is, let's say, a professional service firm, they're relatively small, couple employees, maybe it's just them. That type of person speaks a very different language, lives, a very different day-to-day life from me, a 22-year-old marketing guy who's,
22 drives me wild, man. 22 drives me wild. You're killing it being at 22.
Appreciate you,
sorry,
bro.
I just got to give
Appreciate
you
you,
that
bro.
I did that, in person, but
yeah,
just for everyone else. That 22 is that's inspiring, man. I hope people can see that as like, wow, okay, well, you're getting at it,
dude. I appreciate you, but like the talk that I talk, even though the way I dress, I don't dress that loud, I don't dress that outrageous, but it's still very different from what the stereotypical accountant or the stereotypical lawyer. The language they use, the dress they wear, just the way they interact in the world is very different, right? So I almost have to like become a little bit of a social chameleon and, still retain my own identity to a degree. But at the same time, I need to go, okay, what are the words that they're going to resonate with? What is the, even the, like when it comes down to the editing style, right?
Yeah.
Like what is the editing style? What is the way I can communicate this message that's going to resonate with them?
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, and just to kind of relate to that, like my origin story of my own social media stuff doesn't have anything to do with the field I'm in now.
Mm-hmm.
It helps.
Talk a little bit about that. What is your origin story around content?
Believe it or not, I did start my social media back in 2014, just tracking my weight loss journey. So I used to be, I started out a little bit lower than this weight, and over the span of about 2 years, I lost 150 pounds, and I got really fit.
Wow.
Kept that off for about 5 to 6 years. Then, COVID and some stuff happened, and I put a lot of it back on, but it's going to come off real soon here again. But I just tracked my progress and I shared my story. Like at the start, it had nothing to do with, sales or coaching or anything like that. Eventually it kind of morphed into that because the following I got, but it was kind of it. And it's just really a different field, right? Like with fitness and weight loss, like people are emotionally connected to the fact that they need to get healthier or they want to get healthier. So starting with a story in that niche is almost more beneficial, whereas in this, like people want value first.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a opposite, but it doesn't help me today with what I do now. Other than the fact,
real quick, what is your niche or your offer right now?
Yeah. So basically, I help STR or MTR investors, so short-term rental, mid-term rental, boutique hotel investors, kind of one of three things, basically. It's like if they want to raise more capital through social media, if they want to grow their management portfolio, or if they have some sort of like education component of their business. That's basically the three clients that we are like, hey, let's jump on a call and see what we can do. Other than that, I've dabbled in things here and there, but the 8 years of making content myself like enabled me to be a content creator. Like I kind of, my buddy of mine I got here, he's way more of a cinematographer, storyteller, all that than I am as far as with a camera. I always knew how to use a camera, but what people pay me well for now is the fact that I just have a creative mind that just goes. So like, I think it was, if you watch Two Bears, One Cave, Tom and Bert, they're two comedians.
Yeah.
And Tom always says, Bert has some like wild BS ideas, but then one of them will be like money. That's basically my life.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll throw shit out there, hoping it sticks. And it's not, wild, but it's all like, hey, like, what about that? What do you think about this? Let's try this hook. Let's try, hitting on these topics. I'll research stuff that's kind of, in the now and just try and apply that all. And once in a while, I'll hit gold. Overall though, I would say my standard is still silver. I'm still up there.
Yeah.
But it can't be hitting gold every day.
Yeah, no doubt.
And clients should know that too. I think that's one thing. Just to kind of segue. Social media now, there's so many different I mean, you've talked about this. So many different like social media coaches out there that like, I'll help you go viral, 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 viral. It doesn't matter if you go viral if
I hate you guys. I just want you to know that. If you're watching, get out of here.
it's like it doesn't matter if you go viral if 1% of that audience is the audience that you actually want to attract for your business. It's pretty much useless. In fact, it can actually damage your social media growth. Because say you get 100K followers and 60K of them are just because that one video blew up and they're like, oh, this was like a funny video, but then you never do funny videos again, or you never do that style of video again, and it was totally separate topic from what you really talk about. Then all of a sudden you have 60,000 people that no longer engage with your content, but they're still following you. So Instagram just goes, oh, this person, people don't care about this person anymore.
Yeah.
And so they just continue to kind of drop.
So I actually know a guy who like is dealing with the consequences of that right now, and I won't name drop him because he's a friend of mine. But
Savage.
not trying to no disrespect, but yeah, he went viral like 2-3 years ago with like 4 videos in a row, all went viral. He got about 100,000 followers from those 4 videos. Stopped posting because he just didn't like he wasn't able to continue putting that level of effort in. Yeah. And then now a few years later, as he's trying to like get back onto building his personal brand, it's a different style of video. It's a different style of content from what these followers came to follow him for. And so he's really fighting for that, for engagement and to frankly to just reach the right people because he went viral for the wrong thing. Yeah. And that's something a lot of like big YouTubers talk about too. Like people who have like, you know, built like 8-figure businesses off of content is like sometimes the worst thing that could happen to you is you go viral too early because you haven't nailed down like what is my message, who are the people I'm trying to attract, and you haven't nailed down actually attracting those people. So a lot of times you go viral, like you said, you attract the wrong audience, and then now all of a sudden, you know, you kind of screwed yourself over.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, it's all like the way the algorithm works. I mean, nobody really knows, but basically we assume it comes down to some sort of point and like group system. So say they show your content to 1,000 of your followers mixed with a few of others. If all those followers, once again, are like a lower percentage of engagement because they're not interested, it's just going to stop at that first pool. And that's why you see all these people with like, you know, over 100K followers and they're barely cracking like 1,500 views on like a short form video. That most likely is because they've kind of fell into this, oh, I want to go viral. I'm just going to, you know, touch on these crazy random topics. And it's like, yeah, one goes off, but then they're like, oh, that's all I cared about. So yeah, you really just, all the things we talked about earlier, just like focusing in on who your content is for, the right person you want to attract. And if you're gaining consistently like anywhere from 3 to 10% a month in following, that's a success in my book. Like that's what I aim for with clients. Like 3% to me is like the minimum I want. Like I would definitely want to achieve that minimum average. But you know, we've seen 10, 25% just on the content that is actually speaking to the proper audience. And that has way more value for your clients and for the people you want to attract than any viral video.
Yeah. So we're getting a little bit off in the weeds talking about algorithm and talking about stats. Let's kind of back up and like talk to the person who's never created a piece of content before.
Yep.
They've got their private Instagram account where they post pictures of their family and they've got 80 followers. How do you even start? Like, where do you go to just like, okay, I'm just going to put something out there and like get the ball rolling?
Yeah. I mean, most of us have awesome cameras, you know, on the go. I think
You're referring to our iPhones in our pockets,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. You know, like I definitely like just being a camera geek. I'm like, get a camera as soon as you can. But the reality is, if you're in that spot of like not even creating content, then it would just be like picking up the phone and just document what you're doing and what you want to share, right? Like if you're trying to attract, you know, you're the accountant guy, right?
Yeah.
So if you're trying to attract accountants, like show what your kind of daily life looks like in that and what kind of cool things you're doing, what kind of cool things you're doing for your clients, and just start to share those little tidbits. Just try to connect them as like a start, middle, finish. Tell a little story, like share a win, share a tip that, you know, you just told a client or someone that really helped them. Like just start sharing the little things that in real life you do onto a screen. I think people kind of think they have to like read or deconstruct kind of what's going on in real life and like to put it on social media, but that's like people want real, right? So if you just take what you're experiencing in real life, what gives you emotion, and translate that into your content, and just start making little stuff, which is within Instagram, within TikTok, within the editor, just throw some captions on it. Definitely try and always have captions if you can, because like a lot of people watch without audio.
You can literally do that in the Instagram app, though.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
Yeah, and actually fixing the typos is annoying. But
That's true.
if you have a typo, then some people even watch more because they're
Yeah.
like, "Why that guy?"
When then they go comment down below, really angry. They're like, you
It's
used
this.
the wrong there.
It's YO apostrophe UR.
But yeah, what you were saying about like, different topics that they can kind of pull from. Something I've been telling a lot of my clients lately is like, okay, all of you are on client calls like multiple times a week with your clients, accounting, tax, financial planning, whatever. Like, what's hitting with those people that you're on the call? What are you saying to them that's like, they're like, oh, like they're kind of having a revelation at this? Because I know for me personally, I have that with like, I probably once a week out of, I've got maybe 10 to 12 client calls a week. At least one of those, there's going to be something that like for that client is like, oh, like I never thought of that before. That's actually like really interesting the way you put it. And if your client that you're talking to is your ideal client, or at least somewhat close, then guess what? Like you've basically got a topic that's guaranteed the way you talk about it just normally. This topic is guaranteed to attract the person you're trying to attract.
Yeah.
And so like, I take all my client calls Tuesdays and Thursdays. So Tuesday, Thursday, after I get off my client calls, that's when I go to create content because I'm fresh off of those calls. I know exactly what kind of language and what kind of message is going to hit.
That's smart. Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I think what we do is a little different. Mine is kind of like a full on like service. Like,
Yeah.
The way process I like to take is that like I am there kind of coaching my client once again to like tell a story. So,
Yeah.
but
And this is literally like while they're in front of the camera, right?
yeah,
Kind
yeah.
of
So
coaching
like
from
if
behind
they're
the camera.
fumbling on words, and I've gotten to the point where I've niched down so much in the industry that I'm in that I can pretty much like I try to just put myself in their shoes. Like, what would I say? But
Yeah.
with their voice, I always try to say like, here's what I'm saying to get the message across, but make sure you tell in your voice. But like say I'm on like a call with a potential client, and they're like, yeah, but I've been making some content, but it's just not connecting. What do I do? It's just going back to the fundamentals, right? Like, does it have the hook the first 5 seconds that we talked about, that hook? Does it have an actual like get to value point, right? Like, is there some piece of thing that's like going to be like, oh, okay, this was awesome. I'm glad I watched this. And then sometimes you have a call to action, sometimes you don't, depending on kind of what style you go with. And a call to action is just something that, you're like, hey, comment below if you agree or not, or share this video with someone that's going to resonate with it.
Do you have a framework or like recommendations you give your clients for how often you should do that?
If it's a direct like sell, pretty rarely. If it's just like if it naturally comes to the point where like this is a kind of a stark opinion or like an opinion that might get some attention, then it's like, do you agree? Like,
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's like a natural like, let me know, like, this is a conversation, right?
Yeah,
Like, try
it's
and
turning
start
it into more
if
of
it's
a
a natural
conversation.
conversation.
Yeah.
If it comes to an end though, and it's like, then you're adding like make sure you like this video. Like I used to, I will say I
forget to
used
like,
to
comment,
do
and
that.
subscribe.
Yeah, I used to do that just because I was like, oh, well, it's gonna help. But then I was like, maybe we shouldn't. I don't feel like we should need to do that on every
Yeah.
video. And so we started to do that a little bit less, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah. So something I like to do if it's like if it's not just a conversation starter, like comment below what you think. If it's not that and it is more of a sell, even if it's just like follow me on Instagram or DM me to get this free template I created.
Yep.
I like to actually not
Free
wait
offer.
till the end to put those in there. Because if you kind of introduce it and then you go, and by the way, DM me pro forma to get my free pro forma template, and then you go on to explain how it works. Because if people can tell when you're kind of getting to the end of the video, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so if they feel like you're wrapping up, we're getting to 45 seconds here, and like he's kind of trailing off a little bit, then they're just going to scroll on. They're never even going to consume that call to action. Yeah. But if it's earlier on, then grab their attention. Call to action. By the way, DM me this keyword if you want access to this free template.
Yeah.
And then after that, you go on, and here's what it'll do for you. Then you're kind of keeping their attention for longer, and I've seen that work a lot better.
Yeah. To go back to the like how to get people started.
Yeah.
I take a lot of my inspiration for creation from stand-up comics, because I think out of people in the world, they're the best storytellers.
Yeah.
Right? I've always loved stand-up comedy, and I started really to like kind of look into like what is their process, and took some things for myself that have like really been standout. And I recommend it to all my clients, and we keep like basically like a shared note together. But it's basically like comics, when they think of something funny, they write it down, right? Like, so if you're a person that's getting started in content creation and you're like, I don't know what to do, I don't know what kind of ideas to do, every single time you think of a piece of value, something that like impacted you or someone you're working with, just make a note of it in your notes. And either you can eventually go back and just kind of word it differently a little bit for content purposes, or if you have someone like me or you to like take those and then like be like, oh, okay, here's a bunch of like proper like, you know, done out hooks for them. But like then you'll have, by, you know, after a month, you'll have at least like the next month worth of content just in stuff that's real life, you know, that you experienced. And so to me, that's like, you're not even just going to see what everyone else is doing. You're like actually making your life the content in the way that's going to give the value to the person that's watching.
Yeah.
And then the other one is, if you are a person that is just not a great speaker, not everyone is gifted naturally like that. We are in a place where everyone is hiring coaches. Why does no one hire a speaking coach? It's the craziest thing to me. Like, like if you want,
Dude, that's
if you look
such
at
a good
any,
point.
if you look at any of the current top trending like influencers in the real estate space, every single one of them is a bomb storyteller. Pace Morby is not Pace Morby just because his content rocks. It's because he gets on stage and he can command an audience easily with effort, like without effort. And he can do that same with his content because it just gets reproduced and brought. And so if you're going to take that step to be like someone of influence, you need to be able to tell a story. You need to be able to like command attention. And if you're like, yeah, so yeah, and so you're just, it's just not going to get there. You know, you need to step above. And so if I were you and you were like, hey, I really want to do this well, hire a speaking coach. Get in touch with someone who can help you like start to have that confidence in your voice.
That's such a good tip, man. And I'm definitely going to be pushing that to more people.
Yeah, I two of my clients were searching for one just because I like randomly one day I was like, why not? Like,
Yeah.
that makes so much sense. Like, think of every single top person that you know on social media. They're all like, it's not even that what they're there's levels to it, right? There's giving value, and then there's like just commanding attention. And a lot of the top people, just whatever they're talking about doesn't really matter. It's just that you hear their voice, you see who they are, and you're like, okay, I gotta check this out.
Yeah. Well, and the truth is there, and this applies to any kind of coaching and any kind of like training that you take on. But like you think, you know, imagine an MMA fighter, right? Like you could have somebody who's just naturally jacked, a naturally amazing fighter, but then you put them up against a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they're going to get their ass kicked every single time, right? Like natural talent will never be able to beat out someone who's truly, genuinely skilled and genuinely like trained in the art form, right? You know, you look at, you know, even like politicians, like who are the politicians who like really capture people's attention? It's generally the ones who are incredible speakers, and that's something you train over time.
Don't fall into this content trap, okay? Don't just create like negative or shock inducing content just to get engagement. There's nothing like more just kind of like like than just seeing someone who's like either talking consistently like negative or is just trying to like say the most wildest crap. I know it's worked for some people in the world. You know, we all know who they are, but look where they are now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, that's what I always tell people is like let's say you're an accountant and you're trying to make $1 million, right? How many clients do you need to be able to make $1 million? 200, 250, maybe 300. So it's like you don't need this incredible like huge audience. You just need the right people following you. And I mean, man, if your ideal client is the type of person who's going to be attracted to the shock and the controversy, if your ideal client is the type of person who was reading the magazines on the grocery store shelves, you know, 10 years ago, all the headlines and everything, like, okay, if that's the type of person you want to work with, then like be my guest. I guess somebody's got to do it. But like,
Bless
like
your soul.
those people need accounting services too, I guess. But like, if that's not the type of person you're trying to attract, then like, why would you produce the type of content that's going to attract that kind of person?
Yeah, what you just said is so true too. So back when I was in, you know, doing fitness stuff, like I had, I think 130,000 followers at the time, and was probably doing like $5,000 a month in coaching, which at that time I thought was awesome.
Like fitness coaching.
Yeah. And then my friend who had about 20,000 is now doing like 6 figures a month, just because like he actually went and hired someone to help him with the systems and like put that in place that I had no idea of. you know,
Yeah.
so that if you attract the right audience and then know how to then actually capture them and actually like get the conversion happening in an actual like systemized proper way, that's a huge thing as well.
Yeah.
Which you're honestly much better than me.
People think of marketers as people who like, know how to go viral on social media or know how to craft a really compelling ad on Facebook. But like the truth is the best marketers are the people who like, sure, grabbing attention is great and it's important and it's a step in the process, but the best marketers are the people who know the process from start to finish. So maybe they're not as good at going viral. Oftentimes they're not. Maybe they're not as good at creating like these amazing video ads that just grab your attention. But for the attention that they do grab, they know how to convert it at a really, really high level. And that's something that I feel like we've gotten really good at, just in my agency and especially working with the Learn Like a CPA brand is like, I think we did the math one time on, what Ryan's revenue was in his accounting firm versus how many followers he had at the time. Like, okay, like if we do the division here, and this is not how it works, by the way, but like how many dollars is each follower worth on average? Yeah. And it was stupid high. And then we looked at somebody he knows who's got like followers in the hundreds of thousands, and they make far less money than he does. And, his followers are worth, I think, 25 to 30 times more than this other person, just because we know how to convert. Mm-hmm. So, Danny, as we kind of wrap up here, one of the questions that I have for you is, what type of content do you consume? As a guy who's like immersed in the industry, like what kind of content are you watching? Who are you paying attention to? And what kind of like continuing kind of education or stuff like that are you doing to get better at your craft?
I mean, for what I consume, if I'm not doing research, I honestly don't consume a lot. It's more entertainment for me. I definitely like to unplug when I'm consuming stuff.
Yeah.
And I do that through like entertaining sports, comedy, wrestling.
Well, and you mentioned comedy is actually like where you pull a lot of your storytelling tips from, though.
Yeah,
So
I mean it's
almost a both and there.
Yeah, a win-win.
Yeah.
But then, like I said, as far as what kind of I'm doing to push forward is just always making the start to finish process for my clients better, making it easier to create content, making it more comfortable, making them more confident. Like I said, I don't just like show up and like here you go, like go. Like I'm like, hey, like you did awesome with that one. Let's say this a little bit differently. Let's do this. Like, oh, you nailed that one. Like, hey, things are gonna get better. Like this is the first time. Like no worries. Like I really just try to induce confidence into my clients and push them to be like what I know they can. I don't take on every person I work with. I look for a specific individual within this industry. I look for really authentic people that I know have kind of a story behind what they're talking about to tell. Because then, like we talked about before, like once you just give that value, and then you start to ingrain that kind of personability into it. That was kind of my first approach when I got into all this, is like, how can I combine business with just a bit more or less like, hi, and a bit more personability, and so that you can kind of like get to know someone and like get connected with them, because that at the end of the day is going to lead to way more conversions. So I just continue to try and improve that. And get better at ways I can make that easier for my clients, and that's why I'm a little bit different than kind of a lot of the other people that do this.
Love it, man. Where can people find you online?
On Instagram, it's at STR Content Guy, and then my main profile that is all my kind of like weight loss journey in life is just in the bio, and that's pretty much it. I mean, from there you can check out like YouTube, my old YouTube videos if you want.
Danny Mabley, everyone. Thanks so much,
man.
brother.
I appreciate you having me on.